Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we are focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLucio, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Drive On podcast. Today, my guest is Joshua Wilson. Joshua is a Marine veteran who now works for America's Warrior Partnership. And for anyone who's not familiar with America's Warrior Partnership, their mission is to partner with communities to prevent veteran suicide. And that's a cause that's worth fighting for as far as I'm concerned, and why I'm glad to have Joshua on today to talk about America's Warrior Partnership and everything that they're doing and the different partnerships that they have and community organizations that they work with. So welcome to the show, Joshua. I'm glad that you're here to join me today.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into America's Warrior Partnership, and tell us about yourself and your background a little bit. And so that way we know who Joshua is and who we're talking to about, with all this stuff.
Right. Yeah. So I am from rural Georgia. If anyone out there is familiar with Eatonton, Georgia, it's the dairy capital of Georgia. It's where the color purple was founded. Alice Walker's from there, and the Uncle Remus story. So it's very country. I left to go to the Marine Corps from that area on my 18th birthday. And I had 4 pretty awesome years with the Marine Corps. I toured on the 26th MEU, was able to go to Al-Assad, Iraq for a while during that. And I also spent some time in Djibouti, Africa, assisting with operations in that area and with that Eastern Horn in Somalia. We had a pretty cool pirate patch out of that one. It's a good time. And my role in the Marine Corps was aviation ordnance, bombs, missiles, rockets, flares, and most importantly, I spent a lot of time with the 50 cal weapon system. I loved that job and had a really good time with the Marine Corps. And I used the benefits that I got from the Marine Corps to go to college. And I was the first person in my family to go to college, successfully complete it, and then have leftover GI Bill to, attend MBA and law school. And I think around that point is when I started to become pretty interested in veteran benefits, because they changed my life. In many ways, they changed my social class. They opened up the world for me, both literally being in the military and traveling the world, and then after by providing me with opportunities to really grow. And so I was grateful to the Marine Corps and to the country. And I started to seek out other veterans to find out, what they were doing so that I could help or so that I could learn from them. There were people who mentored me and I wanted to pay it back. I worked as a lawyer for a while in Georgia, not doing military related work. I worked as a public defender for a handful of years, and one of my partners, Jennifer Cross, her husband is Scott Cross, and he's a U.S. Army veteran who was at the time managing our Warrior Serve program. It's a technical program. All our cases and community stuff goes through this technical program. So he was doing it at America's Warrior Partnership. And he said, if you want to take a break from advocating for indigent people, you should try advocating for veterans. We do a lot of that here all across the board. Just come talk to us. And I thought, well, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but it's tiring work. And public defenders have a pretty known burnout. It kind of reminds me of the Marine Corps in a way. The Marine Corps for young enlisted men has about a 25% retention rate. So 3 out of 4 Marines after their first 4 or 5 years, they get out. Marine Corps is making veterans left and right. And I like to think other jobs that are high stress, they tend to have, a similar turnaround as the public defenders have high turnover as well. So it's kind of interesting. I'm a glutton for punishment, they might say.
Right.
but it's rewarding work. Serving the Constitution as a military man was really cool because it's all execution, and then serving it as a lawyer is really cool because it's all interpretation. So, the Constitution being that bedrock that brings us together is pretty cool. But I digress. Regardless, I started to think more about helping veterans. So I joined in with America's Warrior Partnership, and I met with our CEO, Jim Lorraine, first. And he explained a lot of different things to me. It was a lot to process. But what I gathered from that initial meeting was we need to connect veterans better to resources that exist. We need to make people aware of the successes that veterans have, the things that they do. Me being an example of that, someone who had a very different outlook. If you were to estimate my success as being like rural, near the bottom of my high school class, had no prospect of college, had no idea what existed outside of Eatonton, to now I was postured to be able to do good things. And with America's Warrior Partnership, I've been able to. So Jim says to me, when it comes to helping somebody, even if they're a veteran or not, you've got to treat them holistically. You have to establish a relationship with them. Veterans don't have great relationships with their veteran service officer. My veteran service officer was an hour and a half away from my house. I was rural and country. I don't spend a lot of money on gas. We share cars in the country. So like, how am I actually going to get to this person regularly? Now, I was being evaluated for tinnitus when I was young. And I had hearing loss as well. But eventually going to Dublin, Georgia from Milledgeville was just enough a pain in the butt that I said, what can we do to stop me having these appointments? Because the gas is killing me. And they said, well, you can sign this waiver. So that's a limitation of my potential benefits I would have got from disability. I've got 70% loss in one ear, 30% in the other. Now, I think in my case, the ringing in the ears of tinnitus is probably pretty fair. Like, I don't have bitter personal relationship with the VA because of that. But I do think that there are millions of veterans who have difficulty getting to their VSO and to their VA. Millions. And there is nowhere for them to go online. There's nowhere for them to call where they can connect with real people. So Jim kind of pointed this out as well to me. He said, when you take care of veterans holistically, you think about the things that matter the most. And this is going to be your employment and your finances. You got to have a job that's good, that you're growing in. You got to have finances. You have to have healthcare. You have to have housing. You need solid transportation. You need some sort of spiritual anchor. It could be, through fellowship and friendship and bonding, brotherhood. It doesn't have to necessarily be a traditional religious approach, but you need community. And then you also need some sort of recreation. And so that's the holistic wheel. And that is the basis of our model, that every person, specifically the veterans that we serve, need to have access to these things. Now, in most areas, you will have a local community that serves veterans. And this local community might be, if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, the Warrior Alliance. You can go to them and connect with them if you're looking for a better way to use your GI Bill. And they might circle back and connect you with Georgia State University's military office, right, that they have for students. You might go to them and say, I really need help upgrading my disability, to which they will call that local VSO and say, hey, what's the status of this claim? And that VSO may just circle back with the VA. Maybe the VA's denied a claim because they haven't fully looked at a disability that you're claiming, right? This happened with Vietnam vets. The law changed to incorporate the pathways around Vietnam, the water on the outside, to include more naval and Coast Guard members who are more likely to be there. The VA is not necessarily going to go and retroactively approve disability for Vietnam guys. Do you imagine the amount of money? It's a tough conflict of interest. The VA needs to operate and save money. People like us, America's Warrior Partnership, can come in and advocate and say, this person qualifies, and we have proof. And we've got the systems in place because we are working on pushing these cases to motivate the veteran service officer, to educate, to collaborate. And that's our model. Connect, educate, advocate, collaborate. So connect veterans to resources and connect resources to veterans. Educate the community about what exists, educate the veterans on how they can get those resources, right? And this is not just about disability benefits in the VA. This is also about your state benefits, access to state parks. you can get a tag for that. You can get LinkedIn Premium for a year. You can get free concert tickets from VetTix. You can get discounts from businesses all over, both local and national. Who's organizing it? Who's keeping up with it? The difficulty is you can't just post a list, because these discounts, these freebies, these resources, they change all the time, right? And so one of the difficulties with that is that it has to be a live group of individuals. And that gets us to the first part of America's Warrior Partnership, the network. The network connects local organizations to national resources. If you reach out to one of our licensed clinical social workers at the network, which you can do if you go to americaswarriorpartnership.org and you click need help, you fill out a form, you tell them what you're looking for. They will connect you both to your community. So if you're in Atlanta, the Warrior Alliance, but if the Warrior Alliance can't cover, there's a gap. We just don't have lawyers. That's a super common thing. We will look and we will reach out to maybe a national organization, maybe Vets Pro Bono, or maybe a pro bono law firm in your area, and say, hey, can you help? So the idea is not just to replace the VA, because they are the heart of the benefits. They are paid for by tax dollars. They are congressionally chartered, but to motivate them to do better, to expand the connection that veterans have with the other organizations. And different organizations do different things for different folks, and also to expand the audience, right? So we're not just serving veterans, but we are serving spouses. We are serving caregivers. We do services for children and dependents, to include the whole family, so that we really increase our impact. Now, the way it works is you improve the quality of life of veterans holistically. Our theory is that we will reduce veteran suicide. I mean, if the news headline was Russia or China or Iran or anybody is killing 22 American troops a day, people would be ready to go to war, to nuke that place. If suicide is doing that to us, then we need to have that sort of same rigor and anger toward healing and helping. That's our philosophy. So we have the network, which keeps up with what veterans need. You can access that via our website. You can also call into the network at 1-866-AWP-VETS, and you can use that tool to find those resources: healthcare, transportation, finance, spirituality, recreation, and housing. You can also connect as a community leader with our community integration team. And our goal is to reach and create local communities all over the United States. We've already got established community partners now. I mentioned the Warrior Alliance in Atlanta because I'm from Georgia. That's what I think of, but it could also be Upstate Warrior Solution in South Carolina, in Greenville. It can also be, I believe it's 211 San Diego Vets in the West Coast, or there's a New York group, Indianapolis. We have a group. We have a group in the Panhandle. We have one in Arizona for the Native American population. It's the Dine Nazba Partnership. So we are expanding everywhere that we can to create real relationships on the ground. And then we have a series of initiatives. So I won't go and read off each initiative in long depth, but I'll give you the short version. So our initiatives are Operation Deep Dive. That's our research arm to prevent veteran suicide. It's a partnership with pharmaceutical providers, university providers, and private think tank individuals, PhD types, to go and connect to the communities and speak to the families of victims of suicide and find out what factors are repeating themselves, and evaluate that, and put the scientific method to the test, and discover if there are more direct ways to prevent veteran suicide. We also have the Corporate Veteran Initiative. That's my program. The Corporate Veteran Initiative is a free and confidential way for military employees to bolster and strengthen their military affairs program. If you're working at a company and you would like them to have more job accommodations for you at work, you could call me about that, and I'd reach out to their HR team and explain to them, what we know. And it could be a simple thing, such as connecting with the free federal group that provides recommendations for job accommodations. And you can put mirrors up on computers that help people who have stress reactions when people are behind them, or noise canceling headphones for people who might have tinnitus and they might need, or a buzzing. There's all sorts of organizations that provide these things to companies for free. So I help connect them to that. If you're looking for volunteering, you want to deliver care packages to your community, start something locally. Maybe you want to sponsor a transition in bed. Those are things that I do with the Corporate Veteran Initiative. You can also, as an individual, reach out to AWP. But if you come to the Corporate Veteran Initiative, we can do that for you as an individual employee. We also work with human resources and management staff to create military affairs initiatives. And it might be recognition of veterans. It might be working with an organization like Psych Armor to increase the awareness that the supervisors have in the organization. If you want to recruit veterans, but your veteran recruiter doesn't know the branches, doesn't know what an MOS is, they need training so that they can actually do that. So that's also part of what we do, whether it's recognition for the company or recognition for the veteran, whether it's building out better benefits for the military connected employees or just letting them know that they exist, whether it's just increasing awareness of our partners. This is something a lot of the companies like through the Corporate Veteran Initiative. They love to hear, hey, Josh, what is going on right now? Well, these are the people who are really killing it volunteering. These are the companies that you should reach out to their ERG leader. These are the communities where we think need the most help, and these are the ones that are thriving. So part of America's Warrior Partnership, when you zoom out, is us finding out how we can operationalize the entire country to help veterans, because veterans are mass produced as people constantly get out of the military, and their success is sort of the success of America. We consider that synonymous because, when veterans lead in their community, when they thrive in their community, it really just means the American people are thriving. So that's just kind of like, I know that was a mouthful now, but that was sort of like a big bucket of AWP and how we partner with communities to prevent veteran suicide and improve the quality of life of veterans.
Yeah, and I love that holistic approach that you take, because if you just focus in on one issue here and there and just kind of cherry pick the ones that you want to focus on, it's not looking at the big picture, right? If you're just focused on the mental health side of things, but not the financial side of things, the job security, that type of thing, that could be a big part of what is going on with that individual. And so looking at everything holistically, taking a look at the whole big picture is a huge part of what needs to happen, I think. And so one of the reasons why I love to have people from organizations like America's Warrior Partnership is because there are veterans who have just lost hope in the services that they've used, right? They completely write off the VA because they had this one bad experience with the VA. But like you were saying, the VA is responsible for more than just, let's say, mental health treatment. They're responsible for the GI Bill, for the disability benefits, and all these other things. And that has a huge impact on the financial aspect of things. And so, there's plenty of stories of veterans not getting the help that they need from the VA, including the financial aspect. And oftentimes they just stop looking for help after they get to that point where they just feel like they're not being taken seriously, or that they aren't getting the help, and they just stop. Yesterday, I read a post on social media about a Marine Corps veteran who took his life last week. His name was Stephen Osborne, and the post included the suicide note that this individual wrote, which I'm not going to read now. If anyone wants to read it, I'm sure you could find it online. But the gist of it was that he had just lost hope in the system at the VA, and just wanted the suffering that he was experiencing to stop. And could you imagine if he knew that there were other options out there? Like if this type of information was just there for him, he still might be with us, and there might still be that glimmer of hope that he might have, and he might still be fighting on another day, and not just fighting just to survive, but thriving too. Taking care of all the things in his life that maybe were not as optimal as they could have been, but he could still be with us, and I'm sure there, like you said, there's 22 a day, that probably have similar stories to that. They may not make big news headlines or whatever, but they're still individuals. They're still people with families, with neighbors and coworkers and friends and people who cared about them, and they just kind of felt like they lost all hope, and so I really do like having organizations like America's Warrior Partnership on the show, because it gives that one more option, that one more reason to keep digging and keep trying to find that thing that's going to work for them, right? So and the way you guys do it, that holistic approach, focusing on that community and figuring out what is going on with those people in that area, in that community, and on the individual level, I think is a smart approach, and I think it's one that's worth sharing with the people who are listening out there. So I'm really happy to have people like yourself on. And so part of this partnership that you have is to educate the veterans about the opportunities that are available to them, right? So how are you connecting with these veterans? How are you, first off, coming across them and making that connection, and then what is it that you're doing to help educate them about the opportunities that are available to them?
Yeah. So we can talk about how we do outreach and sort of how we do holistic care, from the point of view of helping the veteran. So when you go to americaswarriorpartnership.org, you see the link, need help. When you call the phone number, you have that. But you know what? Veterans have lots of websites that they can find if they Google, I need help. And they have lots of phone numbers, right? And so that is not enough. Like, I always promote that because it is a necessary component. People have to be able to reach you. But proactive outreach means consistently advocating and considering strategically, how am I going to connect? How? And so we do this all the time. In the company, for example, that's my specialty, the Corporate Veteran Initiative. We always talk about, do you have a referral program where if your veteran brings in another veteran, you incentivize them? It could be a lunch, a plaque, a note, anything just to get started. Are you recognizing the veterans in your company? Do you, one company we work with, AGS, has a wall of heroes. It's really cool. You go down this one hall, it's all the pictures of people and some medals and some things that just show their service, so that everyone can see that they're working with people who did really something awesome, did something really great for the country. And that encourages connection. The idea is to motivate veterans to feel accepted, to feel like you are supportive. And there's a reason so many people get out of the military and they're like, I want to go work for Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Booz Allen. These companies scream, we are military and we love them. We want to be supported. And we are in a time right now where people have really strong opinions about everything. You don't want to risk working for an employer that has a strong opinion against military, or going to a healthcare provider talking about post-traumatic stress who has a strong bias against military. So I think it's natural for people from the military community to seek out people who advertise it. So that's one of the things that we do with outreach. We talk to, in my case, companies, but in other cases, the communities. We talk to community leaders and we say, do you celebrate Veterans Day, Memorial Day? How do you celebrate it? Do you respect veterans every day? How do you connect? Are you putting up signage? Are you sending volunteers in the streets? Do you have publicly posted numbers for your vets? Are you connecting to vets? I mean, to circle back to the companies, because once again, that's my area of expertise. Do you have your veterans in the company meeting for an ERG? If it's just led by some supervisor, just one guy, then that's not in veterans. We have purpose, and we led in ways that you don't lead in the civilian world. The lowest ranks among us were responsible for extraordinary events that occurred in combat, in logistics, and operations. And so veterans will tune out if they are not engaged. And this is also true of military spouses who managed their children's education in a household and the entire operation of the household, and usually a job and a traveling job. And I mean, military spouses were doing remote work long before the rest of us. I mean, they know what's going on, and they stay with companies longer. They're great employees. So that's part of the outreach. It's awareness about what we bring to the community. A slight detour. I work with a group on the side as a volunteer because a lot of us might work with one nonprofit, but we volunteers at heart. That's why we do it. I volunteer with Veterans for Political Innovation. And the reason that we support veterans running for office, I mean, we obviously support anyone who's a good candidate. Veterans know a lot about sacrifice, right? It's built in us, So think about the fact that if a veteran loses to another candidate, my opinion is the veteran or military person is more likely to say, I lost to somebody better. That's good for America. I just don't see that level of understanding about what sacrifice means for the country coming from somebody who didn't experience that brotherhood. It's a bit of a bias, but it is what it is. That's why I serve veterans. But I think that's a similar sort of organizational loyalty that you see with veterans and companies, right? It doesn't mean that we don't care about individuals, of course, but it means that we understand the bigger picture because we've experienced things by will, by choice, by MOS, by deployment that have forced us to see outside of our own selves. And I think that is central to being a veteran. It's central to volunteering. It's central to service. And so the philosophy that we have at AWP is that the more veterans that we help, the more they will want to help. And it is true. I mean, so let's talk about holistic care because this fits in outreach. If you we'll just call them military spouse A. Military spouse A has an issue that has to do with employment. But you dig a little deeper and you find out military spouse A is actually overworked at home and can't keep a job because military spouse is also a caregiver and military spouse's partner has traumatic brain injury. If these things remain untreated, this isn't just an employment case. This is a disability case. It's a financial case. It's a quality of life case. If these things are left untouched, then it can ripple out into the people that they know and then to the people that they know. So our point of view is if you address anything that people ask for, then you will get down to that root issue and you'll be able to connect. And the good news is, regardless of AWP being someone who's trying to bring military services together, these military services already exist all over the United States, right? There are people who help in all of these areas. They're just not necessarily connected. So our goal is to sort of create a connective tissue and a safe, neutral space where people can come together, which is why every year we have a symposium. At our symposium, anybody who wants to help military or be part of military can reach out to us and connect with us and come to the symposium. It's like a conference style. There's classes that are interactive discussions. There's a little bit of entertainment, but it's mostly focused around clinical assistance and how you can better serve veterans. We all work pretty hard to take notes, to exchange cards, to find out, who's doing what and where and how. And that just makes our networks that much bigger because network in sort of the business sense is like, oh, these are just people who can help you do things. In the veteran sense, these are people who are boots on the ground helping veterans, right? And so that it has a lot more, I would say it's a lot more tangible impact. But once again, I'm biased. This is my, area of work. But yeah, so holistic care is important because it uncovers other things. And even if it wasn't a military spouse, there are plenty of individuals who, if they are seeking recreation, it's because they may need therapy, actual therapy. If they're seeking a job, they may need occupational therapy. If they're seeking finances, they may need resume assistance or more information. Maybe they have a other than honorable discharge and they can't use their GI Bill. Maybe that can be appealed. I mean, a GI Bill not existing and then you advocate for it and it does exist, that's a life changer. And that's something that we are learning to do faster and better as an organization because we're, a team. So that's pretty cool.
It is cool. And that holistic approach, there's some things that you mentioned there that in my mind, I didn't even make the connection until you just brought those up. Like, how the person, maybe the military spouse couldn't keep a job, but because maybe they're also a caregiver and they're dealing with their spouse at home, and it's just causing all that extra stress and tension and all that kind of stuff. And when you start thinking about the big picture and looking at all the little pieces that are connecting together and how they're causing maybe one of those pieces to kind of fall off, it really starts to make sense. And you start to think about some of these issues that the veterans are having and their families in a much different way. So you're not just sitting there like in the cartoons when the water starts leaking into the boat and they're like, trying to quickly jump and hit the one that's leaking right now, and then the one that's leaking harder, and then they're just jumping around all over the place. You're not doing that. You're trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we get this boat out of the water so we can repair it and then put it back in the water so that it can float, right? That's kind of what it seems like to me, what it is that you guys are trying to do by having this community approach, this network of organizations and individuals who are out there trying to help the veterans in the veteran community.
Yeah, no, I think that's a that's a pretty colorful and accurate explanation. I mean, frankly, if you look at it, whether it's the VA, and because they all have obvious issues. Like the VA, although the VA is the source of the vast majority of the tangible benefits, that is what we discuss, your GI Bill, your disability, your pension, your health care. I mean, that VA facility and those benefits are the core. So you're right. If somebody says, "Oh, to hell with it," that is a huge chunk of their quality of life that they're just missing out on. So the VA, I consider them to be critical, whether you like them or not. They are critical. And so our approach is to advocate where we need to, and connect where we need to, and be strategic about it so that when you do connect with the VA, you get streamlined in the process enough that you get the base benefit. Then we can branch out from there, because the VA's biggest problem is numbers. It's bureaucracy. That's probably what I should have said earlier. So if you want to cut it, that's what I would cut out. But I would just say the VA's biggest problem is that they have so many people to deal with. I mean, they're like their own country. I mean, really and truly, when you think about how many people they have to deal with, and that means that they proceduralize everybody. They compartmentalize the military. All right, you're Hall 2 months from now. Like, it's just a machine. Yeah. And machines don't necessarily fit when what we need is relationships. Right.
And that goes to your point too of how you're not trying to automate these processes. You're trying to get some real connections with people. And when you have an organization like the VA who's just so massive with the number of people that they're trying to help, if they don't try to automate stuff, there's no way that they're going to be able to do the job that they're supposed to do. Just the amount of manpower that would be required to do all of that would just be astronomical. So it would be a very hard thing to do. But then when you lump in organizations like yours, where America's Warrior Partnership is making those connections, it's actually strengthening that system, that core system that you're talking about, by allowing some of those other issues that maybe the VA isn't equipped to handle, to allow those things to be addressed and complement what they offer.
Yeah, and I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there. There was a second, you hit the nail on the head. The VA has this situation where they don't have enough manpower to have a relationship with all of us, right? But neither does America's Warrior Partnership. What we have is a system for bringing people together, right? And like that's really the key, because we're a small organization. We have less than 100 employees. I'm not sure our number. Maybe it's less than 6. It's less than 60. I'm pretty sure. But our organization is not huge. Our organization is like the military because we're so many of us are veterans. It's just compartmentalized very well. Like the Corporate Veteran Initiative serves companies all over the country. They all funnel through me. It's all about process management. When a company needs to do volunteering, I'm going to find the volunteering organization that can help them. And what's cool about it is there's already the mechanisms in place. We're just like connecting the synapses here. I mean, for example, you say, hey, Josh, I want to volunteer by mentoring with veterans. I say, you can sign up as an ETS sponsor. You don't even necessarily need to go through your employer to do that. We can set you up right now. You can start mentoring veterans who are transitioning to your area. You might say, I want to do it as a company. We can also do the same thing, but now we need an ETS representative to say, all right, this is how we're going to build it out for your company. That works the same way all across the board. It's not just volunteering. Community engagement is no different. If you try to build a community on your own, one man, you're not going to do anything. But if you say, hey, I'm going to go to this city and I'm going to speak to the political influencers and the Chamber of Commerce and the VFW leadership and maybe, some of the veteran outreach leadership, if they have it, and I'm going to try to bring these folks together. Now you have the manpower that the VA didn't have. That's the idea. It's that we all have to sort of pitch in, because if America's Warrior Partnership and the VA and the VFW and the USO and the Chamber and the universities and the hospital and healthcare system are thinking about veterans in a proactive way, then now they can work together, set aside a little bit of their time or resources, put it into that pot meaningfully. Now we have bigger impact. So that's kind of the dream. Like now you're seeing the sort of strategy that we have behind it.
Yeah. And it makes complete sense. I really think that is a great way of doing things and coming together as a community from all these different aspects of the community, putting them together to work together and use their resources for the betterment of the veteran community. What are some of the plans that you have for the future in terms of growing this network in the community and even other things that you might be planning on in the future?
Sure. Yeah. So future wise, just to kind of like spread it out, and I'll talk about, I suppose, my own program first. For the Corporate Veteran Initiative, our plan is to grow to the extent that we have a full-scale national network of military-friendly employers that we can refer our veterans to, that we can help share the stories with, that we can connect the military-connected employees to resources. Sorry, that was a mouthful. But the idea is that with CVI, we want to grow enough to where if a company is starting a new military affairs program, we got a whole list of people. Hey, these are people who already got it going on. Reach out to them, get connected. You need to outsource part of your program? That's fine. Because we understand that military veteran and military affairs initiatives and companies, they take employee time. If you got a company of 10 people and 2 veterans, you don't necessarily need a full-scale military affairs program. Those 2 guys, you can just give them an hour a week to meet in the coffee shop, and then you can also connect them to AWP, bam, right? They can get everything that they need, and they can reach out and have a phone call with me, once a month. Hey, what's going on with you? That way it's outsourced. That way you don't have to do it in-house. Now, if you have to hire an HR person to manage military benefits and manage military employee resource groups, it can be quite costly. So we want to help smaller organizations by helping them outsource. We want to get to the point that larger organizations are invested in mentoring smaller organizations so that everybody has a military affairs program. We want everybody legally compliant. That means that they are paying all of their reservists well. We want everybody hiring veterans, not just for part-time jobs. A lot of people want to hire veterans for part. We want full-time quality employment for veterans that match the skill and expertise. So that's really the end goal, is to make some of those things happen all over the country. Operation Deep Dive, their goal, I think, very specifically, is to get the number of veteran suicides down, to provide research that tangibly shows what works so that we can drive it all the way down to zero. I think other initiatives like community integration, I think we want to build enough of a network that anywhere a military member transitions to, or a spouse or caregiver, or anywhere they transition, they've got human beings near them they can speak to, shake their hand, and say, hey, I'd like to have a helping hand, or I'd like to give back. And that increases community. So that's the end goal. Or maybe not, who knows what there's never really an end when you try to improve the quality of life like this, frankly. But our immediate goal is to get stronger in our various programs so that we can really knock a dent in veteran suicide, and we can really uplift veterans and improve their quality of life.
Yeah, and I think that's a great goal to have, because I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but when I started the podcast, it was with the goal of helping to reduce the amount of veteran suicides that are out there, right? And I'm not having any kind of delusions about my capabilities as one single individual. I'm not going to, by myself, I'm not bringing that number down to zero. If I could bring it down 1 or 2 like that by myself, that would be wonderful. But with a community of people like what you're putting together here, that community of people who are out there actively trying to better the lives of the veterans, I think is going to help really move the needle in that downward direction, down towards zero, because that's what's needed is the people who are working together, actively trying to help the veterans in their communities, and offering the services and that holistic approach that they really need. So that's really, I think, the key here is getting that group of people together, and that's exactly what it seems like America's Warrior Partnership is doing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, like a practical example. In the future, if I speak to a veteran who wants to tell their story, well, now I've met you. And so I can say, hey, listen, I know a guy who tells stories. You've got a great one to tell. Or maybe someone who just needs someone to talk to. That happens a lot, but they're not ready for therapy. I'm not going to force it on them. Hey, you know what? There's a person, it's not therapy, but there's a person you can talk to, get your story out there, which ironically enough, many therapists will prescribe telling your story in various ways as a part of the treatment. So whatever works, whatever can move the needle forward to make people happier, I'm down to give it a shot. And of course, when it comes to serious treatment, I do want to be clear, licensed clinical social workers do handle that. It's not just a free for all, but inevitably when you're referring veterans, before you get them connected to a counselor, you're going to talk to them and you're going to find out that maybe they don't even want a counselor. And then you say, you know what, I'm a vet too. What can I do to help? So there's also a little bit of that makes it less clinical, less like the VA mechanisms and more community based.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so and other people who are out there, if there are people who are looking like they want to share their story and they have the story that potentially could benefit the overall the greater military community, and they want to get that story out there, that's just not sure where to start, where to go, send them my way, because I love having veterans with different perspectives to come on the show, talk about their stories. If they're not ready to have that story go out there to the world or whatever, there's other things that they could do too, and even in terms of just keeping some of that stuff to themselves with journaling and writing these things down, or sharing it in a different format, right? Where they can still share it, but it doesn't necessarily have to get out there to the world, that literally anybody can listen to until they're ready for it. And that's something that I did when I wrote my book. It started off as me just kind of writing down some notes in a notebook and just kind of journaling things. And then it wasn't until years later that I actually put it in a paper, actual book format. I wasn't quite ready for it at the point that I was just writing that stuff down. But I'm so glad that I did, because there's some details as I go back to some of those old notes that time has kind of erased from my memory, and I am glad that I have some of those memories written down. So I was able to, oh yeah, you know what, that is something that happened, right? And I do remember that now, but but then looking back at that, if I was just sitting here now, I might not remember it the same way. So there's so many different ways of doing things, and I'm always happy to help get people started in the right direction. I had someone who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she had never really told her story to anybody. Even some of her close relatives and stuff, she hadn't really. She had told some of the story, but just never really felt all that comfortable. And she came on the podcast and she told her whole story, and it was an incredible story. And I'm glad that she came on and shared it. And now she was like, you know what, this kind of felt like therapy to me, and I want to share it to more people. I want to tell more people all about it. So, that type of thing is, it could just be that, breaking the ice and getting that journey started, right? And so I'm happy to be here for people like that. So as a nonprofit organization, I'm sure that you guys are always looking for support, one way or another. If there's any listeners out there who want to help out, well, first off, what type of help are you guys looking for in terms of, possibly donations, financial support, volunteers, and other things like that? Where can people go to get involved? I know you mentioned the website before, but maybe you can mention that again. And if there's any other places that people can go to get involved with America's Warrior Partnership and try to help out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you can check us out at americaswarriorpartnership.org. If you are a veteran, caregiver, spouse, or family member, the Need Help button is on the top right. And if you would like to donate, the donate button is also slightly to the right of that button. You can reach out to me individually at jwilson@americaswarriorpartnership.org. If you need assistance but don't have a computer, you can call 1-866-AWP-VETS. And if you're interested in reaching me personally, you can send me that email and I will respond with a quickness, and we'll find out how we can get you connected. Specifically, we are looking for veterans who are interested in telling their stories, who have overcome disabilities and would like to share stories with us. And also we have resources to connect everyone to. So yeah, take advantage of us, connect with us, and reach out to me if you are a business owner, entrepreneur, or if you're a company. I'd love to let you know how the Corporate Veteran Initiative can help you. Once again, we are free and confidential to all military connected individuals, and in my case, employees, because I work with companies, and we're happy to have you if you want to work with us. And yeah, we do take volunteers as well, Scott. It's not an issue at all. We're happy to get you engaged either with us or with the community, because we have social worker teams. We love social work interns. If they, are accredited and all, we'll get them connected to our network. And we've pretty much got every type of volunteering you can imagine, either with us or a partner, either locally or digitally. So just let me know.
And that's great too, because it seems like this is a one-stop shop kind of thing where if there's someone who's out there looking to help veterans, they just don't know where to start. That seems like there's an opportunity potentially with America's Warrior Partnership to get involved and start really making a difference in veterans' lives. So I really appreciate that you first off came on the show to share this, but I really do appreciate that this organization even exists, because it's really important to connect all these pieces together and really come together and help the veteran community out.
Mm.
Yeah. So, Joshua, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you again for taking the time to join me and sharing America's Warrior Partnership with us. Is there any last closing things that you want to share about America's Warrior Partnership, or the the initiatives that you guys are involved with, or even any last messages that you might have for the veterans out there who are listening.
Yes, I did not do this, but I probably should have. So yeah, I'd like to let everybody know that if you're also interested in more information about some of the programs that you see on the website that I may not have covered, or if you'd like more information about Operation Deep Dive and how you can participate, if you know someone who has been a victim of suicide, feel free to reach out to me once again at J. Wilson America's Warrior Partnership. We can definitely discuss the other programs as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will have links to everything that you shared in the show notes today. So when someone is listening to this episode, if you want to reach out, check out the website, get in contact with America's Warrior Partnership, check out the show notes. We'll have links to all of that stuff, including social media links and all that kind of stuff too. So you can get connected with them wherever it is that you already are. And that way we can help grow this network and community of people who are out there advocating for veterans. So thanks again, Joshua, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Drive On Podcast. If you want to check out more episodes or learn more about the show, you can visit our website, driveonpodcast.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Drive On Podcast.